Thank you. Thank you very much. And I am going to follow Randall and his amazing slides in the only way that I know, which is by having no slides. Because those slides, which were built on some great research, are extremely formidable and are being read and watched and discussed by companies all across America. And I was fortunate that before Randall gave his talk at the IAB, he shared those slides with me. But I've had the opportunity now to listen to him, and I would pay a lot of attention to those slides, and I have, and in fact, my talk builds on those slides. It's different, but it builds on those. So I'm going to begin with something that we should keep in mind, which is there is a world around us, and there are trends that are happening in the world around us, and those trends are so important that if we don't align with them, we will, in the long run, lose. And today, when there is a lot of news, whether it is true news or fake news, we sometimes forget these things. So I'm just going to spend a minute on those broad trends, because that's where people tend to live, and then get specifically into the evolution of the marketing industry. I believe that Shakespeare was the very best strategist in the world. He had a line which basically said, "Take the current when it serves, or prepare to lose thy ventures," which means go with the flow, man, or go with the flow, woman. Which means even if you are really smart, selling typewriters today ain't going to work. So there is a trend, and if you do not align with the trend, you will lose. Some of us have been fortunate enough that we have been half smart, half dumb, but we understood what the trend was, and we jumped into the river, and people thought we were leaders. We were nothing of the sort. We just understood a trend, and we aligned with it. Three broad trends which are unstoppable in the world are the trends of globalization, demographic shifts, and digitization. Globalization is unstoppable, though it looks like currently certain countries that have promoted globalization, like Britain and the United States, have decided it ain't cool. Too late. There are 1 billion people in India, 1 billion 2 in China, and 4 billion people soon, only 2 billion or 1 billion now in Africa, who beg to differ. The entire United States and Western Europe have 850 million people, and you are not going to tell 6 billion people what the future is. Simple. Okay? So globalization is for real. It's one of the reasons I believe Walmart did what was, I think, a brilliant move in buying Flipkart in India. It is why bigger than Google, bigger than Tencent, or bigger than Google, bigger than Facebook, and bigger than Amazon are companies like Alibaba, Baidu, and Tencent, which come from China. So do not think that the world isn't going to be global. It is. The second key trend is demographic shifts. And demographic shifts is simply the population of the United States. The only reason it is increasing is because of immigration. If you don't want immigration, you basically are going to have Japan. Japan's population is going to go from 100 to 75 to 50 million in the next 50 years. In Africa, we're going from 1 to 2 to 4 billion people between now and 2100. And the future is going to be brown and Buddhist. Get used to it. Okay? And those are facts. It's not fake news. Facts are real things. Reality has a habit of breaking in. And one of the most important things to be a leader and to be a strategist is to understand the truth. Because there is something called science, and there is something called facts. And that science has given birth to technology. And you've seen some of the trends in technology that was put out by Randall. So I'm going to start with that and imply how that is changing all of us in the marketing industry. So I've been in this business for 36 years now, and 20 years ago, I started making noises about something called interactive marketing. And everybody used to laugh, and they still laugh. But I said there's this thing called interactive marketing because I was a direct marketer after being a brand marketer. And my management basically said, OK, go try something. Okay? So I've been in this space now, quote unquote, interactive for whatever it is, but it's all coming together, as Randall mentioned, for 20 years. And I believe that we have had 3 shifts in those 20 years. The first shift in marketing occurred around 1993, 1994. I was doing digital stuff before in the days of Prodigy and CompuServe, for those of you who remember those folks, okay? But the reality of it is, it was only when Tim Berners-Lee and you began to have the Netscape browser from Marc Andreessen that you began to have what I believe was the first connected age. And a key word that was used again and again by Randall was connections. So the first connected age began in around mid-1990s. And the key form of connection was the link. And many of you may remember you saw this grayish page, and you had this blue link, and if you clicked on it, it would take you somewhere else, and it was so wonderful. One particular company, because these 2 guys who were trying to do their PhD understood that when they were reading their papers, that the papers that were sort of links to the key papers were more likely to be the most important papers in that particular field. So they decided, if there's a page and many pages are linking to that page is probably a good page. So they created something called an algorithm called PageRank. One of those guys was Larry Page, one of those guys was Sergey Brin, and Google is one of the 5 companies in the United States that are very powerful. PageRank, okay? 2007, 2 things happened. A little thing called the iPhone, and around 2007, you began to have Facebook going from .com, from .edu to .com, Twitter coming out at South by Southwest, LinkedIn launching, all around 2007. So now you have 2 things, social and mobile. We are connected to everything, and we're connected to everywhere. And that goes on for 10 years, and Apple and Facebook are 2 companies that are very powerful. We're now about to enter the 3rd connected age. And in the 3rd connected age, data is going to connect to data, which, by the way, is what machine learning and AI is. It's data writing software. The second is things are going to connect to things, which is called the Internet of Things. And third is there are going to be new ways of connecting, of which voice is one, cloud, which you've heard of, is another, AR, VR, and MR is a third. And those new ways of connecting will also be new ways of telling stories. And there will be companies that will succeed in this world, some which I believe we know of, which are some of the big incumbents, and including the Chinese ones, and then some that will come from nowhere. And so technology is really going to be doing a lot of interesting things. What has been the implications of technology on the second most important, so technology in the world is changing, but if we're talking about marketing, who should we be talking about? We should be talking about someone called the consumer. So let me now put forth this hypothesis that it is wrong to talk about the consumer. The consumer does not matter. Okay? Because when you think about the consumer, you think the wrong way that Randall put up, the way we should not do it, which is we look at that person as a consumer of our brand or our company. And I do not define myself by any brand or company. I do not want to have a relationship with Tylenol. I want my headache to go away. I have barely enough time to have a relationship with the people I love. I do not want to have a relationship with someone who values me based on my net present value. So stop it. I'm not a goddamn consumer, because consumer means I'm a cow, you send me messages and interactions, and then you milk my udder till I'm dry. I am a person. So let's talk about people. But remember, because of that stupid thing called technology just I described, this little thing that you have, okay, or people like me who clearly have no relationships, I have two, so I can call myself. So this one, which is the Apple iPhone X, has 2 times the processing power of the first space shuttle. This, which is the Samsung Galaxy 9, which came out 5 months later, has 2.5 times the processing power of the first space shuttle. This is the slingshot that allows me, the customer, the person, and the human being called David or Danielle, to bring down Goliath, which is all of us and all of you. You are no longer even marketing to people. You are trying to engage with the gods. I have godlike power. Bend. Don't tell me about how you empower and enable me. I am already empowered and enabled. Align. I believe that one of the reasons most of those companies that Randall mentioned are doing badly is none of them know or ever knew marketing. Because marketing is about understanding and meeting customer requirements, is what Philip Kotler said. But customers had no power till 2007. After 2007, all those brands went haywire. Some of those are your brands. Companies like mine represent, including ourselves, who started to go haywire. And the reason I realized this is one of the most amazing companies in the world in marketing, a big partner of yours, is Procter & Gamble, our largest client. And I grew up learning from P&G because I was the assistant account executive on toothpaste at that time. And I also have my undergraduate degree in advanced mathematics. And I realized something. I could actually predict how the toothpaste sales were going to be, not based on advertising spend, not based on whatever BASIS scores. It was on one number. Increased distribution at Walmart. And I showed them. I said, hey, look, this is 50% of it is how because in those days, in the 80s, Walmart was like spreading like wildfire. So there it was. I believe most of those so-called marketing companies, which by the way happen to be including us, actually succeeded because of logistics in the 80s, technology, including bar scanning and code in the 90s, and financial engineering and procurement and consolidation in the 2000s. It's now time to market or die, which is why what all of us are now extremely important, because this is the age of marketing. And when most of my clients tell me how important marketing is, I say, bullshit. It's the reason I don't work for any clients, for somehow I'm still at the company. Okay? I said, if that was so important, explain to me this, please. I look at your board, and you have someone called the Chief Financial Officer who looks after money. You have a Chief Technology Officer who looks after technology. How come you never have a CMO on your board? I thought, who's the voice of the customer? That is the real challenge we are facing. We talk about how important marketing is, but we've never given enough attention to marketing. It's what you cut, it's what you consolidate, it's what you manage. Just when it's the most important thing you can actually do. And that's what you all are. You all are marketers. And so it's time for you all to stand up, not now, but in the company, and say, it's time to understand we are engaging with the gods, and it's time for marketing to rise again. Okay. Brands. Do brands matter? Yes. Brands matter more today than ever before. Because brands are the ultimate navigation devices in a fragmented world, and we are having more fragmentation than ever before. And if you look at interbrands and the value of brands, they actually increase. The difference, however, is the way brands are created, as was pointed out by Randall, is different today than it has ever been before. So brands are no longer necessarily created through advertising and communication, but through utilities, services, and experiences. I also put forth the following hypothesis. And I don't have all the facts because I don't have all the research stuff that Randall has, but I'll just put forth this thought. That no major brand has been created in America after 2007 using television. And every major brand that has been recently created post-2007 was first created as an application, a utility, an experience, or a service, and then they used mass media to scale themselves, including many of the brands that were pointed out by Randall. These are facts. This is why my whole stuff is, I'm bringing not fake news, I'm bringing reality, but we look the other way. And that is really where we have to understand that brands matter like never before, but how you create them is different. Consumers matter, but there are people, and if you go to the very high extreme, you go to gods. And technological shifts will continue, and all of those technological shifts will give us, when we're at home, much more power, but will give us, when we're at work, a lot of headaches. But it is a time where if companies align, and all these companies that have come from nowhere with the 20, 30, 40% growth have actually aligned with the gods. They basically treat people as intelligent beings and not as cows who ingest messages and put out milk. So what should we do about it? You all are very successful marketers. So I don't know how I can tell you this because I happen to be working in the agency space and we're like struggling like crazy. We're trying our own stuff, but we'll see if we make it to the other side. But here are certain things that I think you should be aware of. 3 things, and I'm going to give you some suggestions on all 3. The first is think differently about marketing. So think differently about the way you think about marketing. And here are some of the shifts I would think about. We are moving from a world, and this is not like something is dead. You know, when people say like, this is dead, and my stuff is the only people who will ever be dead are the people who say people will be dead. Okay, there's still typewriters around. The person who said typewriters will be dead probably died just because of old age, okay? So my old stuff is, I'm dead, nobody else is dead, so let's be fine. But there are moves and there are shifts that are going on. And the shift is we're going from a world of marketing to self-marketing. We are marketing to ourselves. How do you enable people to market to themselves? The second shift that's basically going on is we're going from a world of segmentation to a world of reaggregation. Again, I'm not saying it's only one, but you have to mix the two. Segmentation is when you take large audiences and make them into small audiences, like television to cable or big magazine to small magazines. In the online world, there is nothing like that because everybody comes to the media one at a time, or to an app one at a time. And then you reaggregate the audiences into large enough ones to market to. So think about segmentation using my favorite animal, the cow, as someone that hacks at the cow, so you basically go from the cow to the steak. Now think about reaggregation of starting with a piece of mince and putting enough of it to make a hamburger. So we're going from segmentation to reaggregation, from marketing to self-marketing. The third thing we're going is from the importance of ownership to the importance of access, which is people increasingly want access more than they necessarily want ownership. A lot of these services happen to be subscription-based, just-in-time based, et cetera. So you've got to recognize that no product company is a product company. Every product company is also a service company. So you have to basically think about that. The fourth change is that the future comes from the slime and not the heavens. What does that mean? If you understand, I'm sort of a scientist. I actually believed that Darwin was right, there was evolution. But evolution was slimy, it was at the bottom. We kept looking at the goddamn gods, right? The real threat to any company is not currently who you compete with, it's the people you pay no attention to. Microsoft paid no attention. IBM paid no attention to Microsoft. Microsoft paid no attention to Google. Google didn't pay attention to Facebook, and it goes on. The real competitor to the auto companies are not each other, but people like Uber. Because Uber doesn't want you to own a car. Their whole stuff is, why are you doing all that shit? Just you go from place to place, call us. It's one of the reasons when I was in Germany, I found fascinatingly, so just the way we work, I've got BMW and Mercedes as clients, okay? I found that BMW, Mercedes, and Audi had gathered together to buy your maps because they believed mapping was critical for the future. The fifth shift, which is also very sort of important, is that you want to basically really think very, very hard as to whether you are living in a world of just your data or lots of data. Because very few companies have, Walmart may be one exception, Amazon may be another exception, Google may be a third exception. But most other companies don't have enough data to understand people. So those are some of the shifts you've got to sort of think about in this world. The second is about organizational design. So one of the lines I believe that is very true, and it's one of the reasons that we in our organization is changing, and I was harassing my old boss, Maurice Levy-Italy, like who said, I want to kick you out, but he hasn't yet, is the future does not fit in the containers of the past. Most organizations have been organized around a world where these things were separate. But as Randall has mentioned, these things have come together, right? And as was mentioned early, in a world of omnichannel and fusion and collapse of the channel, why are we organized the way we are in companies? Above the line and below the line, and analog and digital and stuff like that. What crap? Okay? So what tends to basically happen is we have to think about organizational structure very differently. Now, one of the ways to think about organizational structure differently is we have to basically decide that Andy Grove was wrong. So Andy Grove basically said, only the paranoid will survive. It's one of the reasons why Intel's doing so badly. In a connected age, if you're a paranoid person, you're a porcupine. Nobody wants to come near you. I believe you have to switch diseases. Only the schizophrenic will thrive. You have to run two models, one optimized for today, which may require the containers of today, and one optimized for tomorrow, but working together. And you have to do it simultaneously, because if you don't make your numbers today, you won't have a job. But if you optimize on today, you won't have a future. And one way of basically sort of doing that is starting with a blank sheet of paper, having a bunch of alcohol, or if you're in California, some drugs. Okay? And saying two simple things to yourself. Constraint number one, it has to be legal. Number two, it has to follow the rules of science. And number three, I want to build something that will destroy the company, but I know how to break even in 3 years. What you will create is something that's probably already being created. And this I learned because at some particular stage during the dot-com boom, some of my clients ended up at these amazing startups, and I said, are you happy now? They said, well, we're happy, but we don't have a lot of the stuff we had. We don't have all the data, we don't have the brand, we don't have this, we don't have the reputation. But on the other hand, we don't have any of the old rules. It's easier to remove the old rules than build all the other shit. All of you are world-class companies. Everybody wants to be like you after they want to be like maybe 3 or 4 of the successful digital companies. So you all are actually in a very good place. It's just how do you change? And therefore, I will end with, if we have to basically think about marketing differently among the shifts I explained, if you want to think about organizations differently, and one of the things, by the way, in organizational differently, I always ask someone something very simple. Tell me how your incentive systems work. Because I understand your press releases and your slogans, but how do you actually pay people? Because if you pay people in a particular way, they don't pay attention to all your slogans and press releases. They do exactly what that is. So if you're saying the future is important, but you put all your losers on the future, I know exactly what's going on. You're trying to figure out how to manage the losers. Or you say the future is important, but by the way, I'm only going to promote people based on how much revenue they control and how many people they control. You basically are, again, saying you don't care about the future. So if you understand someone's incentive systems, you actually understand how the company works. So I always ask, let me figure out the incentive systems. Because eventually, we all want to get paid, right? It's one of the key things I tell people when they say, do it for cheaper. I said, I'm not. I don't care about you as much as I care about my daughters. They go to very expensive schools. They don't make it cheaper, so go to hell. I'll go find another person. Okay? I don't say it that way. I still have to have a job. Okay. But that's what we all say as people, right? The world isn't getting cheaper. How come we're supposed to get cheaper? More productive. That's different. Okay. So the last thing is why companies, and I've watched companies and I've helped change companies. I'm in the process of trying to change another big company with a lot of other people. There are 2 things. There are only 2 ways a company can change. A company can change either by changing the people or by upgrading the people, period, over and out. You can buy everything you want, you can put out all the goddamn press releases, but sooner or later, you're going to have to deal with these crazy things called carbon-based feeling individuals. You can't replace carbon with silicon yet. Okay, you can't, so you have to deal with people. And people, I won't talk broadly about people because clearly I just talk to myself on the phone, but here's what I will tell you about myself, about what I've learned. So I've got 3 key issues, 3 C's, and these are the ones that maybe you have, but these are the ones I have. The first one is I hate change. To me, change sucks. So when people tell me change is good, I say, I'm a happy camper, you change. Why does change suck? Because you have to learn new things and you make a fool of yourself, and everybody basically says, I told you the guy was an idiot. Why do I want to do that? Change is really difficult. But what I learned over time, and by the way, I really believe it's actually a testament to unemployability. I've been in the same company for 36 years, right? This is how much I hate change. But what I basically decided is the more I want things to stay the same, I am going to have to change. That's number 1. Number 2 is I worry about cannibalization, which is, can I actually hurt what I did before? I'm good at this. Why do I want to do something that actually destroys what I was good at? If you don't cannibalize yourself, somebody else will eat you up, so you might as well do that. It's not necessarily very nice to look at, but you better cannibalize yourself. And third, and this is the real issue, and this is very true for myself, it may not be true for you, I worry about my competence. Do I actually understand what the hell is going on? The world is changing so fast, it's really, really hard to know what's going on. So let me give you one little thing that I do which I think may help you. I know all of you all are really busy, but I suggest that you allocate 1 hour a day to study for the rest of your lives. It may be 7 hours a week, and by the way, if you notice, Bill Gates does it, Warren Buffett does it, lots of other people do that. Because if you aren't investing in your own self, you are going to become irrelevant. And I get up every morning. Just today it was hard because I landed at 2 in the morning, okay? I get up in the morning and I study. And I will end with this. In a world of staying connected, let's stay connected. And the way to stay connected, including sharing my studies, is @Rashad on Twitter. Thank you.